The crystalline ceiling of the Grand Conclave shimmered, reflecting the panicked expressions of the assembled representatives. Below, the sprawling chamber, a monument to the unity of the Galactic Concord, buzzed with an undercurrent of barely suppressed fear. Holographic projections flickered, casting ethereal shadows across the polished obsidian floor, each image a stark reminder of the unprecedented situation. A collective murmur rippled through the ranks of the assembled dignitaries, a symphony of hushed anxieties and apprehensive pronouncements. The very air crackled with a tension that seemed to solidify the ornate carvings and shimmering energy fields woven throughout the colossal space. For centuries, the Galactic Concord had maintained a fragile peace, a tapestry of countless species bound together by treaties and mutual self-preservation. But now a single unforeseen variable threatened to unravel it all: humanity. Across the vast chamber at the heart of the conclave sat the Primarchs, the leaders of the 5 founding species. Their silhouettes, cast in the cold blue light emanating from the central projection, were etched with worry. Xyler, the elder of the Krill, a species known for their unwavering pragmatism and strategic brilliance, was the first to break the tense silence. His voice, a low rumble that resonated through the chamber, was laced with concern. The reports are disturbing. Their rapid technological advancement, their unpredictable behavior, their emotional intensity. These humans, they are an anomaly, a variable we cannot afford to ignore. His words hung heavy in the air, a tacit acknowledgement of the unspoken fear that had gripped the Concord. The Krill had always approached diplomacy and conflict with a detached, analytical mindset, seeing war as a game of calculated risk and resource management. Humanity, with their volatile passions and unpredictable actions, defied all known parameters. Across the circular table, seated in a throne-like chair, sat Alara, the matriarch of the Sylvans, a species known for their profound connection to nature and their deeply rooted pacifism. Her long, flowing robes, woven from iridescent plant fibers, shifted with her subtle movements, the gentle rustling echoing through the chamber. Her voice, a melodic whisper that contrasted with Xyler's stark pronouncements, was filled with a cautious empathy. The data suggests a rapid assimilation of technology. Their grasp of engineering, mathematics, even theoretical physics, exceeds the established benchmarks for their developmental stage. We cannot deny their potential, but neither can we ignore their aggressive tendencies. Her delicate features, usually radiating a serene calm, were etched with a visible furrow of concern. The Sylvans, custodians of countless worlds and deeply attuned to the natural rhythms of the universe, sensed a discordant note in the arrival of humanity. A potential imbalance that could shatter the harmony they had strived so long to maintain. The holographic projection shifted, displaying a series of sensor readings, energy signatures, navigational trajectories, communications logs. Images of human vessels, sleek and angular, their designs utterly alien to Concord sensibilities, scrolled across the central screen. The data was undeniable. The humans were expanding, exploring, and engaging in ways that defied established galactic protocols. The consensus within the conclave had been gradually shifting towards the idea that humanity was a threat, a destabilizing factor in the delicate balance of power. Lord Varys, the representative of the formidable Zidonian Empire, a species renowned for its militaristic prowess and ruthlessly efficient bureaucracy, rose from his seat, the metallic armor that encased his form clicking as he moved. His voice, a booming pronouncement that cut through the hushed murmurings, echoed with a predatory zeal. The Zidonian Empire has reviewed the data. We have observed their fleet movements, their resource acquisitions, their attempts to secure strategic sectors. They are a danger. Their rapid expansion, their blatant disregard for established borders, their undeniable capacity for aggression, this cannot be tolerated. We must contain them before they become unmanageable. His declaration, filled with cold, calculating certainty, resonated with the inherent paranoia that festered in the undercurrents of the conclave. The Zidonians had long held a desire for greater dominance within the Concord, and the emergence of humanity, an unpredictable wild card, represented a threat to their ambitions. A wave of dissent rippled through the chamber. The representatives of the various species, each with their own unique cultures and agendas, voiced their concerns. Some advocated for diplomacy, arguing that aggression would only escalate the situation. Others called for containment, suggesting a series of carefully constructed sanctions and blockades to restrict humanity's growth. Yet the dominant sentiment, fueled by fear and uncertainty, was one of apprehension. The humans, with their unknown capabilities and unpredictable behaviors, were an unknown quantity, a threat that demanded swift and decisive action. The debate raged on, a chaotic jumble of conflicting opinions and strategic calculations. Days turned into weeks as the conclave deliberated, the weight of their decision pressing down on them with suffocating intensity. The images of human activity continued to flood the central screen: orbital stations, bustling spaceports, and ever-expanding networks of automated mining operations. With each new data point, the fear within the conclave solidified. The consensus was growing inexorably towards a single terrifying conclusion: humanity had to be stopped. The Krill, always methodical in their approach, had proposed a series of defensive measures: blockades around key systems, limited trade agreements, and strict limitations on resource transfers. The Sylvans, always the voice of peace, had suggested engaging in peaceful negotiations, offering scientific collaborations, and fostering cultural exchange. But the Zidonians, sensing an opportunity for power, had subtly manipulated the conclave, leveraging the prevailing fear to push for a more forceful solution. They proposed a preemptive strike, a surgical military intervention to cripple humanity's nascent infrastructure and subdue their aggressive tendencies before they could become a truly galactic threat. The Primarchs, realizing the gravity of the situation, knew the decision would forever shape the destiny of the conquered. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the final vote was cast. The tally was projected onto the central screen, a split decision. The Krill had abstained, clinging to their cautious pragmatism. The Sylvans, as always, had voted against intervention, clinging to the belief that peace and understanding could prevail. But the Zidonians, with the support of a significant number of other species, had tipped the balance. The vote was a narrow victory, but enough. The motion to initiate a preemptive strike against humanity had passed. The chamber was silent. The decision hung in the air, a chilling premonition of the violence to come. The order was given. The Zidonian fleets, along with ships from a number of other species, began to mobilize. The preparations were meticulous, the strategic calculations precise. The attack was planned to be swift, decisive, and overwhelming. The goal was simple: to cripple humanity, to subjugate them, and to prevent them from becoming a threat to the conquered. They believed they were acting in the best interests of the galaxy, preserving the established order and ensuring the continued stability of their fragile alliance. But they were about to discover, to their utmost horror, that they had underestimated humanity. Massively. The first volley of attacks ripped through human space, devastating orbital defenses and obliterating colonies. The initial wave was devastating. Human systems were crippled, infrastructures were reduced to cosmic debris, and billions died. The Zidonians had expected a swift and decisive victory, the subjugation of a primitive race. They did not expect what followed. Across the vast gulf of space, in the heart of humanity's ancestral territory, a response began to take shape. Within the core systems, the initial shock gave way to a hardened resolve. The humans, seemingly fragile and vulnerable, began to fight back. Their response was not the frantic, disorganized resistance the Zidonians had anticipated. Instead, it was methodical, calculated, and utterly devastating. The first Zidonian fleets to engage were met with an unforeseen intensity of firepower, their superior numbers negated by a relentless, strategic counterattack. Human vessels, small in number compared to the overwhelming Zidonian presence, moved with an impossible agility, employing tactics that defied established conventions. The humans fought with a ferocity that seemed to be born of a deep-seated rage, a fury unleashed by the unprovoked aggression. As the conflict escalated, the Zidonians, confident in their technological superiority, began to experience setbacks. Their formations were shredded by waves of concentrated energy blasts. Their capital ships, the pride of their empire, were picked off one by one, their shields overwhelmed by the relentless human onslaught. The humans, seemingly outgunned, outmatched, and outmaneuvered, were not only surviving, but inflicting grievous damage on their attackers. The conclave, once filled with the hushed pronouncements of a calculated preemptive strike, was now filled with the screams of a galactic nightmare. The reports that flooded the chamber, now accompanied by the unmistakable smell of ozone, spoke of catastrophic losses. The Zidonian fleets, once a symbol of unyielding power, were being decimated. Humanity, it turned out, was not the primitive race the conquered had imagined. They were something else, something far more dangerous, far more unpredictable. Xyler of the Krill, his face etched with a rare display of emotion, stared at the unfolding chaos with a mixture of fear and profound respect. The Krill, known for their cold detachment, found themselves strangely enthralled by the humans. The human response, born of a perceived betrayal, was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Their strategic brilliance was matched by an unparalleled ruthlessness. The humans were not simply fighting back, they were annihilating. Alara of the Sylvans, her gentle eyes filled with sorrow, could only watch as the war raged, praying for a swift end to the conflict and mourning the senseless loss of life. She had tried to warn the conclave, to persuade them to seek understanding. But her voice, drowned out by the cries for dominance, was lost in the cacophony of fear and ambition. She felt a profound sense of despair, realizing that the actions of the conclave had unleashed a storm that would consume the galaxy. Lord Varus of the Zidonians, his metallic features contorted in a mask of fury and disbelief, could not comprehend the scale of the disaster. His ambition, his lust for power, had blinded him to the true nature of humanity. He had been so sure of his calculations, so confident in his military might. Now he watched as the very foundations of his empire crumbled. The Zidonians, the masters of war, were being systematically dismantled by a race they had deemed inferior. Their arrogance had unleashed an implacable enemy. The holographic projection shifted, displaying a series of intercepted communications. The messages, translated into the common galactic language, were chilling in their simplicity. They spoke of unwavering resolve, strategic superiority, and a commitment to protecting their own. There were no demands for surrender, no pleas for mercy. The humans were fighting to survive, and they were succeeding. Conclave descended into a state of panic. The Zidonians, desperate to salvage their pride and limit their losses, began to withdraw their fleets, their retreat a disorganized rout. The other species, realizing the extent of their misjudgment, began to sever their alliances, scrambling to protect their own territories. The very foundations of the Galactic Concord were crumbling under the weight of humanity's rage. The conclave, once a symbol of unity, was now a fractured mess of fear and recrimination. Then came the message, a single clear transmission cutting through the chaos like a beacon of clarity. The message addressed to the conclave was surprisingly concise, a cold and calculated pronouncement of what was to come. It was broadcast from a human warship, its signal so strong, so pervasive, that it saturated every communication channel in the known galaxy. The message was a warning. A warning that signaled the human response, now revealed, was not just about the war, but about something more. "We have observed your actions. We understand your fear. You have crossed a line." The voice was devoid of emotion, yet it resonated with an undeniable power. The speaker, a human representative named as Admiral Eliza Reynolds, laid out the human position in chillingly calm terms. "The unprovoked assault on our people, the needless destruction of our worlds, the betrayal of your own principles, these actions will not be forgotten." The message continued, outlining the human response, a plan for what was to come. "We are not interested in conquest. We do not seek to dominate. We simply seek justice, and we intend to have it." The voice, though devoid of any visible emotion, was filled with a chilling finality. The humans were not content with defending their own space. They were going to ensure that their aggressors paid the price. The human fleet, though still small in number, had established tactical superiority. They moved with uncanny speed, launching strikes against strategically sensitive targets, crippling infrastructure, and destroying vital military installations. The human fleet was not interested in annihilation. Instead, they targeted military assets, resource-gathering facilities, and high-level command structures. Their strategy was precise, meticulous, and devastating. The humans were not only winning the war, they were reshaping the very landscape of galactic power. The message ended with a single, clear promise. "We will be holding you all accountable for your actions." The silence in the conclave was almost unbearable. The gravity of the situation had finally set in, a realization that their actions had unleashed a force they could not control. The Zidonians had underestimated the humans. The other species had followed blindly, seduced by fear and the promise of easy victory. Now they were all facing the consequences. The humans had made it clear. The reckoning had begun. The weeks following the message were a blur of chaos and fear. The human fleet continued its relentless campaign, punishing those who had participated in the attack. The Zidonian Empire, its military might shattered, saw its territories occupied and its leadership brought to the negotiating table. Other species, fearful of the human wrath, scrambled to demonstrate their innocence, offering reparations and begging for mercy. The humans, implacable in their resolve, began to lay down the terms of the new galactic order. The conclave, stripped of its authority and credibility, was forced to convene again, but this time it was in a very different state. The atmosphere was one of profound fear and uncertainty. The Zidonians, their military might decimated, were represented by a trembling delegation. The other species, humbled and desperate, looked on with a mixture of dread and hope. The Primarchs, once the leaders of the Galactic Concord, sat in silence, their faces etched with a mixture of shame and resignation. They knew that their actions had unleashed a storm, a wave of human retribution that would reshape the very fabric of their reality. Admiral Reynolds, flanked by a delegation of human scientists, diplomats, and military advisors, entered the chamber. Her presence was a stark reminder of the new order. The humans, once underestimated and ridiculed, now stood as the undisputed masters of the galaxy. She moved with a quiet, determined grace, her gaze unwavering as she scanned the assembled representatives. Her voice, calm and measured, cut through the tension. "We have witnessed your actions. We understand your motivations. We have also seen the damage you have caused." She spoke of the war, the destruction, the lives lost. She described the human suffering, the grief, the rage. But she also spoke of something else, an understanding of the deep-seated fear that had driven the Conclave to attack. "We recognize that fear is a powerful motivator, but fear is also a dangerous guide. It can lead to miscalculations, to rash decisions, to actions that are ultimately self-destructive." Her words, devoid of any hint of arrogance or malice, hung in the air, a stark indictment of the Conclave's actions. The humans then unveiled their terms. They demanded full reparations for the damage caused by the attack. They called for the complete dismantling of the Zidonian military. They insisted on the establishment of a new Galactic Council, one that would be based on principles of equality, transparency, and accountability. But they also offered something unexpected, a path to redemption. "We are not interested in retribution for retribution's sake," Admiral Reynolds continued. "We understand that your fear stemmed from a lack of understanding. We offer you an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to rebuild." The humans proposed a series of cultural exchange programs, scientific collaborations, and joint military exercises. They sought to educate the galaxy about their culture, their technology, and their values. They proposed a new galactic order based on principles of mutual respect, cooperation, and understanding. The initial silence was broken by a wave of disbelief, followed by a hesitant hope. The humans, the feared aggressors, were offering a path to peace, not through conquest, but through collaboration. Their actions, though ruthless and unforgiving, were not driven by a thirst for power. They were driven by a desire for justice and by a deep-seated belief in the potential for a better future. The Zidonians, stripped of their power and their pride, were forced to accept the human terms. The other species, humbled by their experience and desperate for a reprieve, followed suit. The Galactic Concord was over. In its place, a new galactic order began to take shape, one forged in the fires of war and tempered by the surprising virtues of humanity. As the months passed, the human influence began to permeate every aspect of galactic society. Their technology, once feared, was now being eagerly adopted. Their scientific advancements, once dismissed, were now revolutionizing industries. Their culture, once misunderstood, was now celebrated. The humans, having demonstrated their power and their resolve, began to reshape the galaxy according to their own principles. They established new trade routes, promoted scientific collaborations, and encouraged cultural exchange. They helped to rebuild devastated worlds, provided aid to those in need, and worked to promote peace and understanding. The transition was not easy. There were those who resisted the changes, who clung to the old ways, who resented the human influence. But the humans, unwavering in their commitment to their values, patiently worked to overcome those obstacles. They employed a variety of tactics: diplomatic pressure, economic incentives, and when necessary, targeted military action. One of the most striking aspects of the human presence was their commitment to ethical behavior. They did not exploit their advantage, they did not engage in unnecessary acts of violence, and they did not seek to impose their will upon others. Instead, they acted with a sense of responsibility, a commitment to justice, and a deep-seated belief in the inherent worth of all life. The human approach to governance was also unique. They championed transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. They established independent judicial systems, promoted freedom of speech, and encouraged democratic participation. They believed that the best way to ensure peace and stability was to empower the people, to give them a voice, and to hold their leaders accountable. Yet, despite their successes, a sense of unease lingered. The galaxy, though more peaceful and prosperous than ever before, was still grappling with the ramifications of the war. Many felt a profound sense of guilt, a lingering fear of the unknown. They knew they had been wrong about the humans. But what did that say about their own values, about their own place in the universe? Admiral Reynolds, often seen as the face of humanity, continued to advocate for peace, understanding, and the importance of looking toward the future. She understood the lingering fears that haunted the galaxy. But she also believed that the human experience, with its history of suffering and resilience, held the key to a better tomorrow. One day, while visiting the ruins of a once great Zidonian city, Admiral Reynolds stumbled upon a hidden chamber, a vault filled with ancient artifacts. The chamber, which had been concealed for centuries, contained a series of encrypted messages. The messages, translated by human scientists, revealed a staggering truth. The humans were not the first intelligent species to emerge in the galaxy. The messages told of a race of beings, long since vanished, who had mastered interstellar travel and possessed technologies that dwarfed even the most advanced human capabilities. These beings, known only as the architects, had explored the galaxy, seeded life on countless worlds, and built a vast network of megastructures that had long been abandoned. The messages also revealed something more. The architects had warned of a looming cosmic threat, a force of unimaginable power that threatened to consume the galaxy. The threat had been dormant for millennia, but was about to awaken. The revelation was met with a mixture of shock and awe. The humans, humbled by their discovery, recognized that they were not the only ones in the universe, that the galaxy held secrets far beyond their understanding. The revelation also sparked a new wave of fear. The war with the conquered had been brutal, but it had been a conflict between mortals. This new threat was something else entirely. The humans, understanding the gravity of the situation, knew that the galaxy would have to unite to face the coming threat. The humans did not seek to impose their will. They didn't need to. Their actions spoke for themselves. They understood their role in the galaxy was about more than just retribution or punishment. Humanity's destiny was about something grander, something more significant. Admiral Reynolds, facing the assembled representatives of the new galactic order, laid out the facts. "We have been wrong before in underestimating the humans. We cannot make that mistake again. The architects have vanished, but their warning remains." Her voice, calm and measured, was filled with a sense of urgency. The humans now had a responsibility to investigate, to understand, and to face what was coming. It was a terrifying task. But humanity, with its history of fighting against the odds, its relentless pursuit of knowledge, and its unwavering commitment to ethical behavior, was ready. The fight ahead would be a test of their courage, their resilience, and their very humanity. "We must learn from the past, unite in the present, and prepare for the future," Admiral Reynolds declared. "The time for division is over. The time for fear is past. The time for unity is now. We must unite the galaxy." The humans, their history, their potential, now a catalyst for the galaxy's salvation, began the work of preparing for the ultimate test. They shared their technology, collaborated on scientific research, and built alliances with those who were ready to fight alongside them. They would stand together against a threat that could erase everything. Their rage had exploded and the reckoning had begun. But now it was about to evolve. Their rage, their fight, their destiny was about to turn toward something much greater than themselves. Now it was about saving everyone. They knew the price of freedom. They were ready to pay it again, to do it for everyone, for the universe. They were ready. The humans had discovered a new purpose, a challenge that would demand all their skills, all their strengths, and all their passion. The silence that fell over the chamber this time was filled with the promise of unity and hope. The fear remained, but the humans had demonstrated that a more hopeful path was possible. The future of the galaxy was uncertain. The challenges were immense, but one thing was clear. The humans, once underestimated, were now the galaxy's last and best hope. As the first phase of the architects' warning began to materialize, a wave of hope washed across the galaxy. The reckoning had come, and humanity, with its unyielding spirit, its indomitable will, and its unexpected capacity for empathy, was ready to meet it. The universe was about to find out the true extent of humanity's rage for everyone.